All right, so that's what is available for theater-going audiences. What about the streamers? What about those people who just want to click on their smart TVs and watch a new movie? Well, there are some interesting new releases out. Let's start it over on Hulu with the release of Fire Island, directed by Andrew Ahn, interestingly, the guy who not so long ago made Driveways, which is one of my favorite little indie movies of the last couple of years. So Andrew Ahn, a very interesting director. Here he's teaming up with Joel Kim Booster, who wrote the script and stars in the movie. Interestingly, I don't know if you heard of this, that Joel Kim Booster originally developed this script for Quibi, which gets a shout out in the movie. So that was kind of funny. It does not feel much like a Quibi product in the end. This feels like a pretty standard romantic comedy with a pretty healthy level of subversion going on too. This is about a group of gay best friends who take a trip to New York's Fire Island, a hot spot for queer culture, and what happens to them on their trip is very similar to the goings-on of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, but reformatted for a new age. You have some very funny people in this film, including Bowen Yang and Margaret Cho and Matt Rogers, as well as Joel Kim Booster as well. Art, were you more charmed or uncharmed by Fire Island?
Oh, no, I thought it was a funny movie. Hulu's been doing a really good job at taking a lot of their features that I think would have come out in theaters because they're like the sub Fox movies, and then releasing them at home. I would compare this and the one that just recently came out that takes place in high school. I think it was called Crushed. I really like that one as well.
Right.
That does, a little bit more than just subverting and flipping the idea of like, okay, now it's a queer romance. Both of these movies are able to also flip the almost the acts and the structure of what these stories would be going for. So it's not just swapping it out to be a queer romance. It's also swapping out how the story would play out, which is what I appreciate. Because now you're actually making something more original. The only thing that I would have for this movie is that for a lot of the beginning of it, he's like explaining things. I don't think it needs that. So he'll like stop because he's narrating the movie, right? And he's like, oh, what this means is that. It's like, no, you don't need to explain it. There's a bunch of things, especially in the second half of the movie, where they'll just say something. They said something about a pill. I didn't know what that pill was. Guess how easy it is. If you're watching this on Hulu, you got an internet connection. Just go Google it. I think when you end up having to explain the stuff, it stops becoming less of a movie for its demographic and is trying to widen it, which I think lessens the experience of it, if that makes any sense, especially because of what the movie's supposed to be. But no, I thought the characters were, they had really nice banter between each other because you have these two groups that don't get along. One of them is like the really rich, posh lawyers and doctors that feel like they're at the top of the island, whereas our main group, they don't even know if they're going to be able to come to the island next week because they're not going to be able to have any housing. The place where they stay, it's going to be up for lease. So you have this dynamic that, again, is very much like Pride and Prejudice, where they don't know if they're in each other's leagues. But it's all the in-jokes, it's all the different personalities and how they clash that I thought worked very well.
Yeah, no, I think I basically have the exact same reaction to it as you, is that it's all the bits of genuine subculture where you feel like it's lived in and not an experience that's being portrayed as much on screen that are really fun. Like, I love the bit where they're all exchanging drugs and stuff like that. But I think what frustrated me a bit with Fire Island is I kind of felt the movie fighting against itself in different points, where it's trying to be this kind of like fun, subversive, biting satire, I guess, in some ways. And then on the other hand, it is trying to rigidly fit itself within a romantic comedy structure,
right,
so much in the way that like the narration keeps kind of filling in gaps that don't even like need to be filled in a way.
Right?
Like it over explains itself
sometimes,
so many times. And I wanted it to kind of chill out a little bit. I wanted it to have a little more faith in us as an audience and to just let us experience the characters, because I thought the characters were really interesting.
And those are the jokes
and
that hit
ultimately
best.
what made this.
When they don't explain it, where
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
where they're allowing you to connect the dots. Even in the third act, where you have animosity between the two groups, there's a third party that comes in, a dude who's kind of like been popping in and out of the movie for a little bit, and when you end up seeing what that person's all about, like, you know, it's explained through their Instagram, and you kind of get to see the type of person. They don't need to break it down for you. Oh yeah, this is the type of individual that takes advantage in this way. You get to see what he's really all about, and they don't have to explain that bit as they do in the beginning of the movie. But I thought that it was able to deliver a lot of funny jokes, and like I said, there's always a moment in the movie, in these types of movies, where you like click the time and you're like, yep, there's 20 minutes left, and it was able to subvert that's what I like to see. It's not just swapping roles, but actually being able to have a different structure with it. And yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I think that Hulu's been able to pick up a lot of these. I know they also have Love Victor on the horizon, which I was able to catch season 3. Another one that they're ending. We're about to get to all these shows that we thought would be running for a lot more, and they're all wrapping up. But yeah, out of all of the networks out there, at least Hulu's been able to do and give a lot of their queer filmmakers, writers, actors the ability to make a story that doesn't seem to just fit in a box, like Netflix does a lot.
Yeah. I think with both us, Hustle and Fire Island, there's a little bit of an interesting thing of these art directors that we like quite a bit trying to take like a step towards the mainstream. Do you feel like Jeremiah Zagar or Andrew Ahn maybe did had the more smooth transition?
It's a weird thing to compare. My only thing with Hustle is because I really like his very artsy style that he did for We the Animals, and you see that competing to be in the mainstream. I didn't feel that in Fire Island, because as surprised as I was when you told me that he did Driveways, the director for Fire Island also did a couple episodes of Hentified. He did a couple episodes of Generation over on HBO Max, so he's already lived in that world. This is him just doing a feature version of it. So I think Andrew Ahn did a better job. Jeremiah got to go back to his indie bag. I like what he did with Hustle, but I wanted to see more of his indie style, and that's why we were expecting like a crazy, like very award-worthy performance from Sandler, and not more the mainstream. Yeah. So I think Andrew does a better job with that.
Totally. Just going back to the cast for a sec, I thought Bowen Yang was really fun. I actually kind of liked Conrad Ricamora opposite of Joel Kim Booster. I don't know if I bought into them as a duo, but I bought into his awkwardness. Like, I liked it. I don't know if I as an introvert with social awkwardness, like I don't buy the portrayal of introversion in a lot of movies, but I bought his. I bought his inability to just be like freely expressive. So I actually kind of liked Conrad Ricamora in this movie.
Nice.